Hello, everyone. It's Women Wisdom Hub at Caroline. It's me, Caroline,
And me, Mira.
Today we're going to be talking to Tim McArdle from UK Fostering. So, hi, Tim. Lovely to have you do a podcast with us. So, just to say, there are lots of ways that we can think of about changing children's lives. And in this episode today in Women Wisdom Hub, we're going to be talking about one of the ways to change a child's life or children's lives, which is fostering. And so that's the focus of our podcast today. And we're really lucky to have Tim with us today to talk about fostering. So, Tim, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do at UK Fostering?
Yeah, definitely. Caroline, Amira, thank you for having me on. So my name is Tim McArdle, and I've been in the fostering sector for about 23 years. So that's in the independent fostering sector. And UK Fostering has been operating for about 13 years. We operate in the southeast of England, Midlands, northwest, and the northeast. And as a fostering, independent fostering organisation, what we do is we, support the local authorities by recruiting foster carers in their area, and then we look at matching the children that the local authority are looking for with our foster carers. Local authorities will have their own foster carers as well, but there's not enough foster carers within the sector, so they rely on the independent sector to come along and recruit carers as well. And often the independent sector has more resources, so maybe we can deal with some more of the complexities than maybe local authorities are able to do. We would see ourselves as a complementary service to the local.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Tim. And in terms of your role particularly, what is your role in UK Fostering? I know perhaps I should just back up a little bit and just to say that I met Tim many years ago when I decided that I would love to try fostering. And I remember the first time I met Tim was he came to me in my husband's house just to kind of, I suppose, suss us out really and have a chat with us. And I remember feeling really anxious when Tim asked me if we had any pets, because we didn't have any pets. And I thought, oh my goodness, we haven't got any pets, so, we're not going to be allowed to do fostering. And that was my first memory of Tim asking me about the pets. But luckily we did get accepted for fostering. And we worked for UK Fostering, and we had such a fantastic experience, which led us to adopting 2 boys. So, just wanted to mention that and how fostering's one of the best things I've ever done. So sorry, just to digress there. So Tim, so your current role then at UK Fostering, can you tell us about what you do at UK Fostering?
Everything. But that is the that's the downside of being a director at UK Fostering. So actually, I still remember going into your conservatory, and we sat there, really nice conservatory. We sat there and we had a chat about fostering, and I remember two people, very, very keen, very, very nervous in a good way, which is quite normal. When people want to do something and it can be life-changing for them, then it is quite normal for people to be nervous. And I think if you weren't nervous, that would probably be more worrying, because then it shows you wouldn't care quite so much. So for many years, I've gone into people's homes and done what we call an initial visit, and that's where we've already had a chat on the phone, and we say, well, could be suitable. Let's go out. Let's go into a little bit more details. Let's see the spare bedroom, to see the home. Let's see how these people are living. So I probably over the years been to a good 400 houses, in that role. But in the main now, I kind of oversee the recruitment team. So we have a recruitment team that deals with the kind of advertising, the getting the word out there. And I also have a team that match the children as well. It just took.
So you've it was lovely actually, both of you sharing that memory of the first time you met, and when Tim went to do the initial visit. And we're just wondering, for all the viewers out there, Tim, who are listening to us, what sort of you will be looking for in that first visit, so then just people are more aware of what sort of things to consider during that visit?
It's an interesting question, because people rule themselves out of fostering quite a lot because they think, this may not be good, this may not be good. Oh, what about this? We haven't got this. And I think the reality is that people that foster come from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of housing. And, when we look at who would be suitable to foster, I say there is no absolute type of person. There's certain qualities that you need. I think one is adaptability, because when a child comes into your home, you've got to adapt to that child, whether it's just, to foster carers, whether it's foster carers and their family and their children. I think a willingness to listen and learn is massively important. We sometimes have people come in and say, I'm experienced parents, I can do this. And that's great grounding, for example, but we're dealing with traumatized children. That's something different. A lot of the qualities that you have as a parent absolutely will help you, but you're going to have to learn to think about children in a therapeutic way. And I didn't think about, my daughter in a kind of therapeutic way, and I didn't need to. But in this situation, because of the trauma, that's what's important. So a lot of it is about being able to adapt, listen, learn, and develop, and have good principled reason why you want to foster. Some people, for example, yourself, Caroline,
Yeah.
you didn't have children of your own. This was an
No.
opportunity for you to be a parent. So that's important for you in that way. And that becomes a really big motivator to do it and do it well. For others, it's saying, I'm really lucky and I want to give back. And I know there's children that need me. And I'm going to work hard. I'm going to deal with the challenges, because it is a challenging responsibility to care for a child. Certainly a child that you're taking through a traumatic process, or a kind of therapeutic process.
And this is a really good point you've raised, Tim, because it's about the needs for the children who are coming as a foster children. I think it's really good point you've raised, that they come with such sometimes complex needs, including trauma from the adverse experiences they've had. With Caroline, it was the double whammy, we would say, because she was keen to become a mother, but at the same time she's had her therapy training. What provision of a training for other foster parents who would meet the criteria, but they haven't got that therapy background or the training. Would there be any training opportunities for them, or expected for them to kind of engage in some form of coaching?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of training that's available, because people don't have to come into fostering and be absolutely ready to foster. And often, to be fair, foster carers 5 years down the line will look back and say, I'm so much better now than I was at the beginning. I've learned so much. And some of it is just lived experience. You're a foster carer, you deal with a situation. The next time it happens, you go, I know what to do here. I remember this. I remember little Johnny, and I remember what we had to do. And now with Mark, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Or with some children, what you do in one way won't work for that child, it will work for another one. So you develop on the job, as it were, but there's lots of training that's offered. So we have kind of live face-to-face training, but we also have a lot of online trainings in a lot of different areas, and a lot of therapeutic kind of trainings that we offer, and that should go on. So really, foster carers are always learning, always developing, and they're always supported to do so as well.
Yeah, can I just say that because I had no experience of being a mum, I did feel really nervous. I know I had my therapy background, but what was really helpful was going through all that initial training that I had. I just felt really supported with that, and that gave me more confidence that I could do with the fostering. So that the training was really, really important. That was I felt less anxious once I'd had all the training. I thought, I can do this. But like you say, Tim, it is also learning on the job, isn't it? That, you never exactly know how it's going to go with a placement and what you're going to have to deal with. But, what I found really important is to have the support of UK Fostering and the staff there when there were any difficulties that I came up against as a foster carer. But the training that I had was absolutely brilliant. Just wanted to say that.
That's quite reassuring, isn't it? Quite reassuring for any viewers listening and thinking about fostering, and also in particular thinking about maybe communicating with UK Fostering. So that's quite reassuring.
Absolutely. So Tim, in terms of, are there any age restrictions at all in terms of, what age would you say what is the age restriction for becoming a foster carer, if there is one?
I think the only restriction there is legally, by regulations, it's 21 is the youngest you can be to be a foster carer. Now, that doesn't mean that every 21-year-old will be able to foster. So, I think you've got to be a very interesting person at the age of 21 to be able to foster. And you may have different experiences. You might have parented, maybe siblings, within your kind of young life. The reality is that people are more likely to be foster carers when they hit their 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s. The sector wants younger people to come forward, because at the moment we're kind of an aging population of foster carers. A lot of people are going to be leaving fostering. We need people to come into fostering early in their 20s and maybe go through 30s, 40s, 50s. Albeit, we would say that perfect foster carer probably comes along in their 50s because they've got experience. Their children might have moved out. They've got a lot more time to give. But that really doesn't sound, I would say, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s aren't suitable. But you've got other things to balance, and that could be birth children as well. Having said that, there's a lot of foster carers who grew up in foster homes. So when people think, oh, God, how might it impact my children? And is this fair on my children? Well, in a lot of situations, children are inspired by their parents and go on to become foster carers. But I think there's a lot of fear when people are thinking about, do I want to foster? What impact will it have? And I guess what I would say is that you don't need to know, if you're thinking about fostering, you don't need to know all the answers now. We're quite happy to talk to people when we would say, look, if you've got a spare bedroom, number one, that's important because you need that space. Have you got time to give? And that could still be working around work, employment situations as well. And do you have the right motivation to foster? If you do, give us a call, have a chat, see what it is. The worst that's going to happen is we're going to say, not quite suitable because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe that'll change in the future, for example. But I think sometimes people rule themselves out, and we would say, that's fine. And I get the example, Caroline, you said, I haven't got a dog. A lot of people have dogs and think, I can't foster because I've got dogs.
Right.
When in fact, a lot of foster carers have dogs. And those are the kind of things that people think about in advance because, if you're not in the sector, then you have a natural naivety. You don't know all the answers. I'd say find out.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really helpful, Tim. And I suppose something that just came to mind for me, I think when me and my husband were thinking about fostering, I was on, I'd worked at a university for many years and in HR, and I was having a sort of career break, or I'd left my job. So I kind of thought, I've got the space now to consider something like fostering. But I know that it doesn't mean that, foster carers can work as well, can't they? I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Yeah, you have to look at the situation. So these days, things have started to change a little bit. People are starting to work from home a little bit more. So new opportunities arise. Now, I think if you've got two foster carers that both have very, very intense jobs, absolutely rigidly, 9 to 5, probably they haven't got the time to give. But you get some people that say, let's say one carer is working full time, the other carer, I work from home the hours that I want, and we work around each other. If you've got that adaptability, that ability to to react to a child, to pick up a child from school, in a crisis, or the child's not well, and what have you, then that can work. But again, Caroline, that's another example why people might rule themselves out. And we'd say, well, tell us what your work situation is and let's see what you might be able to do rather than over-focus on what you can't do.
Absolutely. And it sounds very much, Tim, when you're talking about what you need to become a foster carer, that adaptability is key, isn't it?
Yeah. In many ways, I think if anyone, albeit when a child comes into your home, there's a level of adaptation that a child needs to make, to come into. This is how the home operates. But when a child comes, things do change in many, many ways. And that links to maybe the experience of the child. And it may well be that, if you say, hey, this is how we operate, and a child's lived their life like this, then you're expecting too much of that child. That's where there's going to be conflict. So it may well be then that you have to learn a bit about how was that child living? What was it like in the last home they were in? Okay, we can implement a little bit of that with us. And then if you try something and it doesn't work, okay, try something else. And you may think that what worked, I say, well, for Johnny may not, and for Mark, something completely different. And that is taking each child as they come and saying, how do I understand this child? How do I react to this child? How do I make that impact? And that can be absolutely case by case.
Thank you, Tim. And I also just came to mind as well, with all my lovely memories of being a foster carer, just to sort of highlight for people watching that there are different types of fostering, aren't there? So, for example, with me, initially we did a little bit of respite fostering, and then we had a mother and baby placement, which then went on to an adoption. There are different types of fostering, aren't there? I just wondered if you could mention maybe a few different types for people listening.
Yeah. So, funny you say the word respite. That word is now starting to change within the sector. I think there was negative connotations to the word respite. So we now use the word stay over as a term. So that's short-term fostering where a child needs to come in for a weekend, let's say, just to give current foster carers a bit of time to themselves, or whatever the situation may be. At times of crisis, it may well be a nice little break would be helpful. And some kind of stay-over foster carers, they also support birth families who have children but just need a little bit of support. And that can include specifically children with disabilities as well, where families have it very tough. And they need, a little bit of support in that respect. So that's kind of stay over aspect. Sometimes there's foster carers that deal with emergency. At any point, yes, I'm available. I don't know what the child is or who the child is that's coming in. I'm available. I'm going to take the child on for a short term and deal with the crisis. And then we have others that medium, long term, where children end up staying in the long term up until they're 18 and beyond, and actually become part of the family. And in many ways, though adoption can give children permanency, fostering can also give children permanency as well. And then we have the parent and child. About 15 years ago or so, the sector started to change, whereby it was seen, do we need to remove this baby from this mum, from this father, or can we bring mum and baby and father together into a foster home and assess their needs before looking at separation? And we tend to see that 50% of children go back with families, and there's been no separation from that parent, and 50% really have evidence that they don't have the ability to meet the needs of that child. These arrangements tend to be kind of 3 to 6 months long, but you're taking an adult into your home. So it's a specialist type of foster care, but really interesting, because if you've got the skills to share, and you've got a parent that is struggling to parent, you're guiding, you're providing a level of assessment, you're recording for the local authorities who are in court at that time to make decisions, but you're guiding a parent as to how to parent. And there are some fantastic outcomes that we hear when a parent is able to evidence their skills, and it's from the support they've had from their foster carers.
Tim, I'm just, as I'm listening to you, it's just, all the memories are just coming back of
lots of memories,
my own experience, and having a mother and baby placement, and and it was amazing. I just, it's a completely unique experience, and I just remember, I think Robert kind of accepted the placement. I think I was at work at the time. I was working part-time, and he said, okay, I've spoken to UK Fostering, we're going to be doing a mother and baby placement. I was like, what? And he said, yes, that's what we're doing. And I just went with it, and I know that the baby didn't go back home in the end, but stayed with us. But it was a real privilege to have his birth mother living with us as well. And when he did eventually become adopted by us, it was really good that she knew us and she had lived with us. And so she knew us really well, and she was comfortable with that. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was just...
She was supportive, wasn't she? She was like, if I can't continue my child, I want you guys to adopt my child. And then obviously later on, another child from same mum, wasn't it? And I think she said, I know I can't. Can they have him as well? Can he go with his sibling there? Which doesn't always happen. There isn't always that close relationship between the parent and the foster carer and then adopter. But in this case, it was probably as nice as it could be under the circumstances.
And it shows that the biological mom, she actually bonded and she trusted both Carol and Rob to actually care for her children, which is quite nice, isn't it, to see? It shows that she was reassured, comfortable with everything. So that's quite, I think, important, isn't it?
Yeah, and, we were supported throughout the process by UK Fostering. So, a big thank you. And I just wanted to sort of mention those little snippets, because then it sort of helps people to kind of understand what it could involve, and what a fantastic experience it was for me and for my husband to do that. So Amira, have you got any questions for Tim?
As you were mentioning the requirements earlier, and about being adaptability, and it's the importance of being adaptive, it's just something came to my mind, Tim, about any financial requirements, because I know sometimes some of the viewers who are thinking about fostering, they might think, are there any expectation around minimum and maximum earnings from one of the parent or both, or what sort of the financial requirements?
Yeah, finance is a good question, actually, because that can determine whether people foster or not. When you have a foster, a child in foster care, you're looking at receiving probably around a minimum of £400 a week, and it can go up depending on the needs of the child. The reality is, when a child is not matched with you, there's no guarantee of finance coming in. Now, what that means is that there needs to be a level of financial stability that foster carers or applicants would have before they foster. It's not an absolute, in that sometimes we're aware that people are right kind of on the line financially, but when a child is placed, they would have the finances to be able to meet the needs of that child. And of course, some people are very lucky and really the finances are no issue at all. What we generally say is when you're wondering about your finance and what kind of things you can do, again, have those conversations with us, for example, and say, these are my circumstances, this is my finance, does it make sense? How can we make it make sense? What's possible? And we will know so many variations of people's circumstances. We know what works. Because sometimes people come and say, okay, I'm working full time, I know I can't foster now, what would I need to change to be able to foster? And we would say, if you could work in a job where you could be a bank worker, which means that, you can just do a shift here or there. Let's say you work in a hospital, shift as needed, but when a child is with you, you don't have shifts. That circumstance is fantastic, because then you're not sitting there waiting, thinking, where are my finances? You're working until a child's matched, and then you say, right, that's it, I can now foster. Or the children in school, I can work 4 hours during the day. So those are the kind of things. Sometimes people will know the circumstances aren't great now, and they need to ask us, how can I make it work? We'll throw it out there. They can work it out. And sometimes people come back 2 years later and say, I'm ready. It took me 2 years, And I think, Caroline, if I remember, and this is going back a little bit of time, you thought about fostering and it took you a long time before you actually approached us. Am I right?
Yeah, I did think about it for a long time. I'm not sure how long. I probably thought about it for about a year or so, or even longer before I think I was. I suppose what can happen is that your worries or your thoughts around whether you can do it and what it's going to be like can even hold you back from making that initial contact with yourselves. And it probably did. Thinking back, I could have probably contacted you sooner and had that informal chat sooner, rather than have it all go around in my mind on my own for like a year and not kind of have that chat. That would have probably been helpful. So yes, I did think about it for a long time before I even approached you. I was very cautious. And then when I did approach you, then sort of wondering why I'd left it so long to approach you.
And that is so normal. People will often say, I've thought about it for years. And then, I've heard it so many times, people go, I should have started earlier. I should have come here earlier. I really wish I'd started earlier. And it is that building up the courage. And it makes perfect sense. It's a massive thing that you're putting yourself forward for. And of course, we all fear rejection as well, don't we? You go for anything. Is it actually, will I be accepted? How does it link to my self-esteem, my sense of worth and my hopes and aspirations? So I think people can put it off for those reasons. But I think you've got to make that first step. That first phone call will determine where you go or where you don't go. And I think you've got to be brave and have a conversation. No, we wouldn't be judging, oh, God, dear, that person rang and they were so not suitable. We're thinking, we want to talk to these people and we want to say, well, maybe this, maybe that, try this, try that, or what have you. So, yeah, that would probably be a strong message. Wait for a conversation. You can have a conversation and we all decide 2 years' time will be great. And then we'll talk to you in 2 years' time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. And that can stop it going round in your mind then, can't it? And it's what you said there about, don't fear being judged, because, and probably that held me back as well. You think, what are they going to think about my reasons why I want to do it? And all kind of, we do fear judgment, don't we? But there's absolutely no judgment at all, is there? A welcoming conversation with no judgment. And I felt very comfortable from the get-go.
I made people very comfortable. That was me.
It was you, yeah.
But I say the rest of our organisation are the same as well, and that's the philosophy. And it's not to say that every organisation is going to act in the same way. And I'll give you a really, really good example. We've got foster carers doing fantastic. They rang their local fostering agency, and the female carer walked with a stick with a bit of a disability. 3 older children who were doing great, and the agency said, how can you foster? If a child ran away, you wouldn't be able to run after that child. Now, for some people, they hear that first feedback and they go, fostering's not for me. And I tell you what a shame that would have been, because they rang, I had a chat with them and I said, well, that's ridiculous. We wouldn't match you with a child that you would have to go running after. And they've had now 2 boys, 2 siblings for the last 6 years, long term, doing absolutely fantastic with them. And that other agents missed out on them and potentially pushed them away. And I think as an organisation, fostering organisation has a kind of a moral responsibility to bring people into the sector who are suitable. So sometimes if we do reject someone, we may say, that's our position, but you want to try other people as well. And I just feel that those foster carers who are doing fantastic, I love these guys, they're doing absolutely fantastic. If they weren't gregarious enough to say, I've had one rejection, but I'm not going to ask again, they would have decided we can't foster. And those two boys wouldn't have had the families. And the sector would have been further in crisis in terms of foster carers. Because we are in the biggest sufficiency crisis that we've ever had, that I've ever seen in 23 years in terms of fostering. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is that a lot of foster carers are getting to a certain age of retirement. And, just that demographic, it's got a large demographic of people jumping off. Two, within the sector, in the main, it is fair to say that, because of government funding issues, that the services from local authorities aren't very good. Local authorities are losing more foster carers in the independent sector because of the quality of the support that they're providing. So that's adding to the crisis. People's finances are impacting in their ability to feel that they can come forward to foster, and people aren't moving out of their homes. So often you're waiting for your eldest child to move out of home. There's a space. People can't afford to be moving out. So they might be moving out in their 30s when they might have moved out in their, say, early 20s, for example. So there's a level at which people will move out in the end, but there's this kind of period of 10 years that we really seeing that non-movement is impacting the people that might otherwise have come forward.
That's really good to know, Tim. That is really helpful. So, so if there's anyone interested, then it would be really good for them to contact you, wouldn't it? Or to contact UK Fostering.
I think we were just going to remind viewers, we will add to the description box, the details, the contact details for UK Fostering, so that they have it there should they, wish to contact Tim or UK Fostering staff and speak to them as well about the services and any questions. Hopefully, this episode would have got them a bit sort of the courage to make that first phone call and find out.
And we have a live chat as well on the website. So some people like to come in. I know I tend to be a live chat person. When I'm going to organisations or whatever, I like to be a live chat. Sometimes, because I'm at work, I can't have those phone conversations, or I can't be bothered to have that first conversation. I just want to find myself out. And sometimes people feel it's a bit of a safer way to have that first conversation with us. So people can use the live chat, they can email through, they can ring and request a call back. So whichever way works for people, we can react to it.
Lovely. Thank you so much for this valuable information, Tim, and for sharing your insight as well, Carol.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Tim. It's been great, and it's been lovely just talking about my experience of fostering and seeing you again. I know we haven't seen each other for a long time, but it just feels like not that long ago when I saw you, and that it's just easy to chat to you. And that was my first impression when I first met you, when you came in our conservatory to have a chat with us. And yeah, just to say to people that, fostering absolutely changed my life, and I really would highly recommend it for anyone if you're thinking about fostering, to have a chat with UK Fostering, because it really was absolutely life-changing. It completely changed my life in a fantastic way.
And the boys' lives.
Yes, absolutely.
They're 9 and 11 now, Tim. Yeah, they're doing really well.
But they were like that when they go to you.
Yeah, they're not now, they're big. Thank you so much, Tim, from me and Amira, and thank you everyone for watching, and have a lovely day, everyone.
Take care,
enjoy your day.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.